To be a CASA volunteer, it takes commitment, diligence, objectivity, and passion. Training is 6 weeks long and involves both online and in-person work. It's not a job for everyone, so the question you have to ask yourself is, do you have what it takes?
We're back with week 4 of CASA Superheroes, following Nick and Shonda as they prove themselves through the trials of CASA training to see if they have what it takes to become a CASA advocate. Let's see how they're doing.
This last week in training, we talked a lot about trauma, and we went into the ACEs study, and I think that was really eye-opening for the group. They saw that trauma affects so many different groups of people. It's not just one specific group that trauma affects. So looking at that, we talked about resilience and how to overcome that trauma, and I think that was a really positive way to end after looking at such a tough subject.
My main takeaways were that people or children handle trauma very differently. There's a lot of difference in resilience, how they're able to process the trauma, the effects trauma play on their development, and how they're able to kind of cope with that and in some cases even thrive through the adversity.
Last week, when we learned about trauma, I think something very interesting that I had not thought of before, and maybe I knew it, but sometimes somebody has to put it into different words or different way to make you really understand, was the difference between acute trauma and chronic trauma. I had not even thought about that, but getting into the specifics was really helpful.
So this last weekend we had class on Saturday and we scheduled a couple guest speakers. One of those was John Buttram, who's works with domestic violence counseling in our valley and sees a lot of the families that we work with.
That absolutely changed my way of thinking, that men in abusive relationships don't naturally suffer from anger management, but instead it's a control paradigm, that they're trying to control the relationship because they have a lack of control outside of the relationship. There's a lot of things going on in their lives that they don't have a say in, and they feel that if they're able to control their relationship, that they're able to actually have some piece of control versus being angry and out of control, which is kind of maybe the old way of thinking about it.
I think we often think only of the other side, the victim survivor, and so to even know that abusers are required to go to counseling and get help, it was really helpful. To hear that side of things was helpful, and to even understand what the process was great. I think that maybe getting a perspective from all sides is the best approach for sure. You definitely don't want to go in with a narrow vision, a narrow understanding. Definitely getting a perspective from all sides is really helpful. I thought that was really impactful.
In the afternoon on Saturday, we did have some of our coaches from our coaching program come. They're some of our more experienced CASAs, and they really help coach the new advocates as they get started.
I thought they were amazing. Having their real life experience and kind of being in the shoes that we're in now. In the past, they were able to kind of understand where we are, what our concerns are, and what we're looking to get out of this, and how the impact that we're trying to make. And just having a coach is really reassuring. Somebody that's been there before, has expertise, and has been in this area and gone through being a CASA, and something that we can feed off of and use them as kind of our coach, but also mentor.
Really helpful to get to see their perspective, talk about some of their experiences, what they go through, tips. We got to, we asked questions and what they liked and disliked, and sometimes it was they all across the board did the same thing. Sometimes they had different ideas on how to approach your kiddo and build that relationship and that trust with him or her.
This week we're going to talk about diversity in training and really look at family cultures and how we all have our own stories. and we're gonna learn more about Nick and Shonda's story.
I think the main driver for me wanting to be a CASA was my experience doing this in the past. I needed community service hours when I was in the 8th grade. My mom had a friend who managed a lower income community. I was kind of dragged there initially, and then once I started working in these after-school programs and helping children with their homework and kind of learning about their story and you know, who their parents are, what their background is, and really forming a bond with them. It was something that I couldn't just do for the bare minimum amount of hours and step away from. So from 8th grade through high school, it was something that I did every week after school, but then also in the summertime, working in these camps that were for families that made less than a certain amount of income. So that had a large impact on my life and something I want to continue to do going forward.
I grew up in northeastern Montana in a very small town. I grew up with my mom and stepdad, although we never saw him as a stepdad. He was our dad. He raised us since I was a baby, and they have a really, really healthy, fun relationship, and so that's what my experience was growing up. So it was a pretty great family dynamic. The home was, I never even thought to not feel safe or not feel loved. All of these things that we're learning about early childhood development and everything that we're learning here in the training, I'm starting to link back to my childhood, and I realized, you know, not that I never thought I wasn't blessed, but I really think that I had it lucky, and I think that might be one of the reasons I am interested in becoming a CASA is I really would like every child to have the opportunity to experience what I had. You know, I had the opportunity to thrive in a safe and loving environment in a home, and just, you know, if I can do anything to help a child, you know, experience that, I'm gonna do it. I wanna do it, and I feel like I need to do it.
Diversity is always an interesting subject to talk about in training because there is so much family culture and diversity in the families that we work with, and we all grew up in our own families and had our own experiences that created our culture.
I think having a better understanding, having an unbiased view about diversity is critical to being a CASA. I think it's essential. I think we need to know and be prepared that we're going to get a variety of kids, and even if you have, you know, something specific like two families where they're the same religion, every single family is still different. Every single person, every single child, they're unique. And so you can have a better understanding because maybe you know a little bit more about this religion or that regional experience of growing up on the East Coast or something. You're still going to come into it with a little bit of background, but every family is going to be unique and different. So I think you need to definitely have a good grasp of diversity and have a nice open mind.
I feel that I come from maybe one of the most diverse places in this country in terms of different ethnicities and people and where they come from. And I've had a lot of experience working with those from different backgrounds. So this is something that's pretty exciting to me and something I feel that I can thrive and excel in. Just kind of being able to balance and understand different backgrounds and diverse cultures and you know, not having any prejudice or kind of unnoticed bias, and hopefully be able to assist those just as I would be able to assist anybody from my same background.
So we're working with families who might have a little different family culture, and so it's really important to recognize that as diversity as well. So we'll be looking at different cultures, talking about the diversity that we see in the Valley and with the families that we work with. Nick and Shonda are doing really well in training. I think our whole CASA staff is excited to get them in to be advocates. They really ask questions and dive into the information we're sharing, and we're just excited to get them on a case and get them to start working with families.
in the first half of training, I've definitely learned more than I thought I would have learned throughout the entire training. So I'm looking to continue that and learning even more in the second half of training. I think it's changed me for the better in terms of opening my eyes in our local community, but also what CASA does on a national scale and the lives that they're able to influence and the children they're able to help. One big thing was going to court and actually seeing that firsthand. So I'd like to do more of that and then once graduating, be somebody that does have that effect.
I think it's really interesting that I've kind of in my mind broken training into two groups. You've got the procedures and the policy and how the courtroom works and the steps that need to be taken and the report that needs to be filled out. But then on this other side is all of the feelings and emotions and the educational side of it. And that aspect, you can't help but take that home with you and maybe use it in your everyday life. I really feel like the procedure side, the policies, the steps, that's great. And you're gonna get a lot of help from the staff and from other CASAs and your coaches, and that's gonna be just uber essential. But this side is also just fascinating, and I think it's just really helpful to prepare me. And so I like that there's both. I really think that that's great. I think that that's gonna I'm kind of getting excited to be finished, but I'm also a little nervous. I feel like I'm not sure I know everything yet.
Exciting things are happening here at CASA Training. Tune in next week to hear how Nick and Shonda are doing as they near the finish line of CASA Superhero Training. See you then.